worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, welcoming you back once again to Enfuegotainment. That's right, namesake program for yours truly here, and I am elated to be discussing the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino with you. That's right, because don't forget, Kill Bill was broken into 2 volumes, but it is in fact 1 film. Yep, you can just call me Fuego for short, and yes, man, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. One of my most anticipated, not just of the summer, but of the entire year, especially for the sheer fact that I wasn't super over the moon for Hateful Eight, I must admit. As I was having some discussion with my lady after this film, we got done watching it, nearly 2 hours and, well, actually over 2 hours and 40 minutes of it, but then again, you know, you walk out as the credits are starting, so it wasn't quite 2:41, at least for us, but nonetheless, when you include 20 plus minutes of previews, and I mean, that really equates to a 3-hour theater experience, but you know, nonetheless, I felt like Hateful Eight should have probably been a stage play of some sort in that regard, and loved Django, loved Inglourious Basterds, not too big on Death Proof though, I must admit, not so much, but you know, loved Jackie Brown and both parts of Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. I mean, one of the most iconic and talented directors of the last few decades, and probably arguably of the modern era, in all honesty. And so for that reason, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you had this laundry list of cast involved, and man, 2 big-time leads sharing the screen together in Leonardo DiCaprio and Mr. Brad Pizzle, that's right, Brad Pitt, and then, you know, various other big-time names. And so here on Enfuegotainment, I always like to cover the bueno, the malo, and the feo, boom, de boom, de boom, just like you see right below there. So yes, good, bad, and ugly, the silly Fuego trope here. And man, I love this movie. The bueno is the fact that I love this movie. This is probably entered the top 3, or at least the top 5. You know, I'll have to give it another viewing, some more rumination and contemplation and so on. But this is one of my, this is probably, in all honesty, the most accessible and the most fun and the most mainstream of anything Tarantino has done. Because really, at the end of the day, without really intending to spoil very much for all of you here, it's pretty much a dramedy. You know, it's, and maybe more so even, like, dramedy is where there is so much more of an emphasis on the drama and good sprinkling of comedy. I would say, like, you know, Kevin Smith being another director that came up about the same time as Tarantino, you know, Chasing Amy is a dramedy. You know, this is definitely more so on the comedic side than it is on the drama side. This movie is so fucking fun, like from start to finish, and the pacing is so just, it's strange how a 2 hour and 40 minute movie could still be paced so well and so tightly done that it did not feel like its runtime. And I think that's because of the fact that it was so much funnier than I was anticipating. Now granted, there are serious laughs in, like, Pulp Fiction, for instance. You know, it doesn't take itself that seriously despite some of the stark, crazy, violent nastiness that transpires in that movie. You know, every Tarantino movie has had a decent amount of humor. Obviously some, you know, significantly less than others, but it's always been sprinkled in. It's just kind of his MO, and the fact that, you know, it's like, it's almost like ultra violence balanced with comedy to just make it go down. It's like a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, so to speak. But this was way more sugar, man. Like, legitimately way more sugar, and a great buddy performance, you know, between DiCaprio and Pitt. Their duo, their loyalty, their, like, pseudo brotherhoodishness that they have going down, it's really endearing. And it's, I hate to use a term like sweet, you know, but it genuinely is that. You know, it's a movie that really makes you, and it's also a redemption tale of sorts, as you've seen in all of the trailers. So, you know, I'm not going to be spoiling anything that hasn't already been, you know, thrown out there in the trailer that has been playing ahead of every R-rated movie practically that I have seen in the last X amount of months. I always saw the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood trailer, and lately I feel like I'm seeing the Terminator Dark Fate trailer every flippin' time too. But I mean, I just saw this anytime anything of an R-rated variety was playing, and you know that DiCaprio was kind of washed up in this particular movie, man, and that you know, he had prominence doing, you know, westerns and then like a few features and stuff like that in like the 50s and early 60s and stuff like that. But now when we join his character in 1969, he, as opposed to being a hero, now he is like guesting on all these different television shows, and he's the villain more so than anything else. And in the meeting that you also see in the trailer between him and Pacino as Schwartz, and you know, pronounce it properly now, you just see how it's a cathartic moment for him because of the fact that he realizes how his fame is being diminished based on the type of roles that he's taking, you know? And it's lots of like villain guest roles on TV as opposed to any sort of like lead starring work. And so yeah, he you know, he's gonna go like act in this project with Timothy Olyphantastic. You see Luke Perry in his final role, and so that is definitely, it's going to be both a bueno and a malo in this fact, and there really isn't a lot of bad that I can speak of, but there is like a little bit that I can touch on. But the bueno is the fact that we also have, you know, this amazing cast, but really it's the fact that it embraces and gives such a cool snapshot of a time in history that I've always loved period pieces. I love stuff late 60s, early 70s. I mean, hell, I mean 80s period pieces. I love 1880s period pieces. I love westerns, and the fact that it's kind of amusing how after his last two films were westerns in both Django and Hateful Eight, Tarantino still found a way to do more western in this movie, with the fact that a good chunk of this is the fact that DiCaprio's character is famous for doing those, and he's being enticed to go do spaghetti westerns, and he's like resentful and just, you know, not wanting to embrace that possibility and whatnot. And the writing is simple, but yet very effective, and it's the chemistry once again between Pitt and DiCaprio is great, and it really boils down to just the top-notch acting from the both of them. And even though DiCaprio is a flawed character in this, he's one that you really get behind and want to root for. It's a terrific performance from him. And Pitt being just kind of the, you know, galunky kind of just, hey man, you know, I'm just here to look good and take off my shirt and have people start, you know, kind of woo in the theater, almost like I'm, you know, in a live studio friggin' audience, for God's sake, at one particular point where he's working on the rooftop. Hilarious, man, legitimately. But yes, maybe some of the most fun I have ever had at a Tarantino film. Did not feel like its runtime. I could just continue gushing, and I would like to, but I need to keep this kind of tout and you know, not respectably overblown or anything. But yeah, it's the most mainstream, the most easily accessible, and it's, in a lot of ways, what you're expecting to happen as I dance around the issues a little bit. I just can't spoil stuff, but you eventually do have some violence in this movie, but it's just, and when it does come, it is to that degree, and I guess I'll get to that in the Feo and the Ugly at the very end. But really, as a whole, this movie is a goddamn delight, man, especially if you're into this particular period in American history and in just the tail end of the golden age of Hollywood and just American cinema in general, obviously. So, malo, bad. And this is where you know, and there's another term that I always say, you know, bueno in abundance, well, grasping at straws with the malo when there's a film that I really, really love is where it also gets tough. But you have this massive extended cast of peeps, and I have to say though, unlike a Pulp Fiction or some of these others with massive interlocking stories and stuff like that, it really does boil down to a lot of glorified cameos for all of these big names that you see throughout this film and that you saw build, you know, in all of the promotional materials and stuff like that. You're not going to see a ton from any of these characters. It really genuinely is. It's DiCaprio's story, and then Brad is his like lead support, and it really it's all about the two of them, and they carry it so well that it's really not, unless you were hoping to see more from the dearly departed Luke Perry or more from Olyphantastic or I don't know, Dakota Johnson or Al Pacino or Emile Hirsch or, you know, all of these other people. There's not, I mean, just accept who our two prime players are and be fine with that. That's really, I mean, just go into that with that expectation at least, and that you're gonna have fun cameos from all of those other people. I can understand some of the disappointment about the fact that Margot Robbie, you know, I still prefer Samara Weaving, sorry everybody, but yeah, as far as her not getting a lot of speaking roles and stuff like that, it really just does boil down to her walking around and looking pretty, you know, as Sharon Tate. And I guess, you know, that Tarantino said that that was all okay, but that probably would be a MALO for some people, and it's understandable for that to be the case, I guess. But, you know, she looks the part, and I mean, she has some fun, cute little scenes, especially the one that you see in the trailer where, you know, she goes to see her own movie, the one with Dean Martin, actual movie, obviously. And that's another thing, just Bueno backtrack. There are so many great throwbacks to style of filmmaking and that particular point, whether it's interweaving through special effects or current actors into some of these old films and stuff like that, or just old bits and whatnot. Like, there's some stuff with The Great Escape. It's terrific. Love it, love it, love it. And also just some of these fake trailers and, you know, previews and bits. I mean, they're all just so wonderfully done. And if I am just not having much more MALO to say, and I'm just segueing back to the Bueno and how much I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, I mean, that's really speaking a lot. And so, feo, ugly. And this is the thing, sometimes I just use the ugly as a way to spoil things about a movie, and so that's exactly what I'm gonna do here. So I'm gonna give a thumbs up here in just a few seconds, and that shall be when I'm segueing into some spoilers, which is really gonna be like the last like 30 minutes or so of this movie, and it's something you're pretty much waiting the whole movie to see how some interactions are going to pan out. And you know from the trailers that something distinctive is going to happen with this particular group, or else they wouldn't be in the flippin' movie. It wouldn't be framed in the fashion in which that it is if it wasn't going to play a pivotal part at some particular point. Okay? So, thumbs up. Spoils for the foreseeable, and I'm going to jump back in with 2 more thumbs up when everything is all free and clear, and you can, you know, not, you know, I don't know, warp your fragile virgin ears or whatever. So, we're going. The last like 20 or so minutes of this movie, when you finally get the Manson family going to do what you have been wondering how the hell it's going to play out. I even turned to Katie near the end of this movie, and I was just like, man, revisionist history, I just know it's coming. I know it's coming. I know it's coming because of what he did in Inglourious Bastards, for God's sake, and the blowing up Hitler in the goddamn movie theater and everything. I'm just like, Tarantino is gonna... At that point, you almost expected it to happen, but not in the amusing fashion in which it plays out, because it's genuine, like, fist-pumping, just... I don't know. It's a crowd pleaser of a moment. That is for goddamn sure, when these few members of the Manson family... Yeah, you kind of get the vibe, I think, if I remember correctly, because there's some quick bits of dialogue where, you know that they're going to kill, and then I feel like the plan changes a little bit, and after some interaction with Rick, and it is just so funny, just this interaction back and forth with DiCaprio's character and those goddamn dirty hippies, and just his aversion to them and just detest of them is really hilarious throughout the entire movie, to be honest. And Brad Pitt's character too, like, neither of them, you can tell they're these seasoned, like, older school Hollywood guys that are less down with how culture is changing, and there's some amusing stuff actually, you know, with the Manson family. And yet, another spoiler, obviously, since I'm still in this particular territory, Charles Manson, he's in for like a scene. Yeah, I thought he was at least going to be in more than that, show back up at some particular point. Also funny how he's Manson in the new Mindhunter, I want to say, the new from David Fincher, season 2 of that, still playing Charles Manson again, except older and more bearded and everything. But yeah, when this conflict finally goes down, when these 3 rush the home and Brad Pitt is tripping on the acid cigarette, man, and where he goes, like, he sicks the dog on the one guy, Tex, and then the other girl, when he proceeds to start bashing her face into everything practically in this house, from framed movie posters to, you know, like banister, like, you know, I mean, like the upper, like, I don't know, shelving above like the fireplace and stuff. Like, that is where I was like, okay, Tarantino, now for the first time in this entire movie, after you were borderline PG-13 without really any nudity and excessive profanity, I mean, there's suggestive sexual stuff, but really, until those last 20 or so minutes, I was like, man, this is the most tame I have ever seen Tarantino script a film. This is crazy to me. And that's where he finally just, yeah, he goes full Tarantino, and it's glorious. Most notably, a bit with a flamethrower. All of you who have seen this know what I mean, and if not, well, it's kind of a send up back to something we see in the trailers. So, the ugly, once it finally occurs, boy is it satisfying. Holy hell, is it fun. And so I'm going to put the thumbs back up and say, everybody, you're safe to tune back in if you've just muted me for whatever reason for the last like minute or two. This was so enjoyable, and I just cannot wait to watch it again. I've seen some people say they thought it dragged in the middle, they thought it was more ho-hum. No. It just, the plight in so many ways of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, especially as he's aging and going through this early midlife career crisis, I don't know, I felt for the guy. I really did. And my favorite scene in particular is his, without spoiling things since I'm out of that, you know, sector now, he has this great scene with this little girl who I thought in the couple scenes that she's in this film absolutely stole the show. She really genuinely did. She has two scenes in particular with DiCaprio, and they're tremendous. And the second one, where she just kind of gives him some critique of how he goes about with this scene that they act in together, maybe my favorite scene in the entire film. So I'm going to leave it at that and urge all of you to go check out the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino. That's right, once again, because Kill Bill is in fact one movie, and we need to have a release of the whole bloody cut at some particular point. I know that it's been screened as such at a few theaters over the years, but gimme, to quote Black Flag, I need some more. I want to have that proper. And yes, you need to get out to theaters and see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so says Fuego. So I am going to give this, honestly, this is the first time that I'm going to be giving 5 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. Yeah, most definitely. This is an exceptional film, and I feel like it will go down as a career benchmark for Tarantino. So, I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors, most notably Twitter and Instagram, which is where I spend the predominance of my time, but also on Facebook, where I have a group that I run called Hail to Stephen King, all about Cy King, my favorite author, sole moderator and admin on there if you want to have some palaver about my personal favorite author. And then obviously here on YouTube, where I would be greatly appreciative if you do the like, share, subscribe thing, help me get over that Jeezy. Yes, there is another YouTube channel where I spend the primary amount of my time that has nearly 28,000 Jeezys. And yes, that would be youtube.com/The Horror Show channel, where we do spectacular coverage every single day, sometimes twice a day, because we're that crazy about it, man. Trailer reactions, film reviews, unboxings, video game let's plays, convention coverage, all kinds of rad status, scarific awesomeness, and yes, so likes and subscriptions and support on all of those different sectors are supremely appreciated, as I all too often say. But really, show Tarantino some love. And also, don't forget that every Monday evening I moonlight on a third YouTube channel, Will Iscredia, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, for hashtag show business, where we discuss weekend box office numbers of both the domestic and the international variety, and then we look ahead to what is coming the following weekend, and we have a little bit of cool palaver about some of the biggest news stories of the last 7 days. So, once again, I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status Awesomeness, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, I shall say hasta luego, cinemigos, constant viewers, greatly appreciated, hopeful that we get to share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later, and until then, adios, y'all.